Hello, everyone. We're the Good Doctors of Abbey Research. I am Dr. Kristen.
I'm Dr. Erin.
And you're incredibly welcome to our YouTube channel. We are two social scientists who hold PhDs and are obsessed with culture, both lived and popular, and how those kind of intersections tell us about the world. We are empathy enthusiasts who seek to use art and storytelling, however it comes to us, to essentially channel Atticus Finch and walk around in someone else's shoes for a little while in order to make us all better humans. We analyze everything from systemic racism in the United States to the costumes on Bridgerton to whatever takes our fancy that week. This particular video is part of a series we have called the Colonizers World Tour, where we are going around the world and focusing on a different country every week and how their relationship with colonialism has affected their history, their culture, and how they now interact with the rest of the world. This week's focus is Korea. We do have a little bit of conversation about North and South Korea in our Korea 101 video, but in terms of art production, we are slightly limited to South Korea. So we've decided, in all of the incredible media, especially the Netflix like deluge of Korean drama that is out there, we chose to focus on K-pop.
That's right.
So today we are talking about the Netflix documentary, Netflix's first original thing for K-pop, the documentary on the girl group Blackpink that came out in 2020 and has turned us into stans.
Blackpink in your area.
It follows all four members, and in just a very lovely way. So tomorrow on the channel, there's going to be an interview with my friend Ashley, who is much more versed in K-pop than we are. It's going to be a bit of a K-pop primer, but even underneath this video, you'll get a couple primers that we've used, including there's a great segment on NPR's Pop Culture Happy Hour that explains K-pop. There's a video from The Root about Black BTS fans explaining their relationship with K-pop. That will all be below. So if you don't really get this whole thing and you want to first, before you kind of experience our video, hit pause on us, go do that and come back. Essentially, K-pop is simple. It stands for Korean pop music, but really what it stands for is a machine that is kind of, if not sponsored by, then sanctioned by the Korean government, that is a huge part of how South Korea interacts with the rest of the world. And it is very regimented. It is all of the performers are incredibly well trained, and it is replicable. That is what this documentary tells us. What K-pop is replicable, and the model works for sure.
Just a little bit.
Just a little bit. Blackpink is the first girl group to really take America by any level of storm. And one of the first groups, full stop, to take America, to be known in America. Their 2019 performance at Coachella is what really put them on my radar. And I know the radar of a whole lot of other people who kept hearing, what is this K-pop business? And not understanding it. One of the gifts that lockdown gave me was a chance to get to know K-pop a little bit better, because I could actually like watch some videos with translations and things like that and really get into it. So all of that to say, if K-pop feels really foreign, we think this documentary is a pretty good intro into it, because Dr. Erin knew nothing.
Absolutely nothing. I knew who BTS was. I had heard of Blackpink. I am not a big pop music person in my daily listenings. I do love the pop music, but I kind of dip in and dip out. And I mistakenly thought K-pop wasn't really for me because A, I'm old, and B, it's in Korean. But I was thinking about it this weekend as I spent literally the whole weekend listening to Blackpink. This is Blackpink playlist on Spotify. Excellent. One of my first introduction, I think, to non-English pop music was I had a fantastic Italian language teacher at the University of Pittsburgh who used to teach us different verb conjugations through Italian pop music and Italian hip hop. And to this day, I still have an Italian like pop playlist on my phone and I can rap in Italian. And so I was like, you know
I
what?
didn't know this. I love it so much.
Yeah. Yes, I can sing several Italian pop music songs from the mid 2000s because that's when I was taking Italian language classes. So I was like, you know what? I've always loved it. And music transcends language barriers all the time. And so, yeah, I have no idea what these girls are singing about except when they sing in English, but I don't care because they're really fun tunes. And it helped me clean my house this weekend, dancing around to it. But what I loved so much about this documentary was it assumed a sort of a level of knowledge about K-pop in knowing that it was a phenomenon, but it really got into this this model that they have, this industry that is replicable, that literally like you slot humans into it and it produces successful bands. But I mean, they make the case, and I think certainly very well, that Blackpink transcends the model. And there's lots of explanations for why they do. But to get an idea for this intensive training that they do for years, like, could you imagine if NSYNC was training together for 5 years before they ever came out and said,
yeah, I mean, my gosh, like it was like the average was, I think 4 years, 5 years, and then 2 people for 6 years. Like,
yeah. And so, you know, I'm no novice to produced groups. It's happened in the US, but when we lived in the UK, it's much more a part of the UK, kind of, I think, over the last 30 years. And some of the, like, Girls Aloud, I think, was put together. Westlife,
I mean, Spice Girls was put together. All the groups, yeah.
Westlife was put together. Obviously, the most recently, One Direction off of
X Factor.
Also, Little Mix. If you guys are K-pop fans and you love Blackpink and you don't know Little Mix, we would invite you.
Yeah, they're a decent crossover.
They are not as good as Blackpink, and
but they're almost as much fun.
We love Little Mix, but they are so much fun, and their songs are a lot of fun. And it's a similar vibe of like uplifting girl songs without the rap, though. That threw me. I was not expecting the crazy rap skills in Blackpink, and that threw me. So I really enjoyed that part of it. And I think it's a gentle introduction to aspects of Korean culture, which I thought was a cool way to do it. Because a lot of times, you know, different cultures can seem really intimidating, especially if there's a language barrier. And so to do it through the lens of K-pop was really smart. And they didn't hit you over the head with the ways that Korean culture was different. But you kind of just got an organic sense of it watching the documentary.
And that's my favorite kind of way to learn a culture, is just the organic stuff, which we talked about with Bangkok Traffic Love Story, like just the, now I know what a convenience store looks like all that kind of stuff. So really quick, I mean, the members, Blackpink was put together in 2016. That was their debut. Yeah. They are part of one of the 4 big record label juggernauts in Korea and South Korea. Their particular one is YG. And the members are Jisoo, Jennie, Rose, and Lisa. Jisoo is the only one who is not comfortable speaking English. So most of her interactions in the documentary were entirely subtitled. Everybody else flipped in and out or is completely comfortable with English.
Yeah.
Rose grew up in New Zealand, Australia.
Rose was Australia, I think. Australian. And Jennie was New Zealand.
Okay, and then Lisa's from Thailand.
Yeah, I think Rose's accent is fascinating because
I love it.
Like, sort of New Zealand, but I think the more Australia comes out in Rose. So K-pop fans, Blackpink fans can correct us if we're wrong.
Yeah, well, I'm sure we're getting this wrong. But what I loved the most is that all of them were very, very clear in talking individually, and then when they were talking like as a group to the camera, what they each brought to the group outside of their like singing and rapping skills. Like they had no control over being put together and which is this lead vocals or is this lead rap or is this like what their role is. But they had a whole lot of control over how they interacted as humans. And they took that control and I think built a really, really healthy system.
Yeah.
The fans tell us in a couple like videos at concerts that like the friendship of Blackpink is one of the reasons that fans are drawn to this.
Yeah.
And I can see that completely. If I ever found out that this friendship was an act, I'd feel betrayed. Like, and I've only spent like a weekend with them. I can't imagine. I know a piece of that relationship stuff is for BTS as well.
Yeah.
And this very kind of controlled transparency that comes with a lot of K-pop culture at this point now. So like, for instance, I loved at one point, they talk about how Lisa's kind of in charge of the vibe of the group.
Yeah.
Like Lisa's the happiest or the most positive, I should say.
Yeah.
And she's kind of in charge of making sure that the vibe is good.
Yeah. And Jinsu's like the older one. And so she's kind of like the mother hen sometimes with the youth when there's like what, like a 2 years a year.
2-year age difference, but she's still the uni.
Yeah. Yeah. And like, you know, it was those kind of moments that give you an insight into the group. But also I think the collectivism of Korean culture and of most Asian cultures is obviously a huge distinction between American Western cultures and Asian cultures. And I think that came about really naturally in the documentary, but I think maybe a lot of people watching it might not know that that's such a huge difference in cultural values. But I think just looking at the way Blackpink behaved, and like, I was more of an NSYNC than Backstreet Boys fan, so forgive me for my references, but I watched like all their MTV stuff. I was obsessed with NSYNC.
Bye. Yeah.
But they always seemed like individuals.
Oh yeah, they never seemed like actual friends.
Yeah, and like, and it wasn't surprising at all when they went on to have solo careers, and like it was seen as kind of like the launch for their solo careers.
Yeah.
And not to say that like these girls won't have solo careers, and they might. But I think they understood the purpose of why they were at that training. It was not to become an individual artist. It was to form a girl group. And as soon as they got together in that girl group, they figured out what roles they were going to have. Both in terms of like, you know, Lisa's the dancer, or isn't she the dancer, I think?
Oh, yes.
Yes, and the rapper?
Guys.
We don't know.
We're still learning. We are fresh into this fandom. We are fresh.
But you know, who was dancing, who was rapping, who was
choreo. I mean, because there's all dancing. Like there's the choreo, and I'm gonna scroll and see if I can find out.
One of them's the better dancer, and I think it might be Lisa. So anyway, all of that to say, like, that was the big thing, and the age and the respective age it was really interesting, and I love the conversation with Jinsu and Jenny about using the word uni, and like that the second thing you ask anyone in Korea after what their name is was how old they were. And that it was one of those things that like, as we are traveling the world in our Colonizers World Tour, that's a really simple way to understand a distinct difference between Korean and American culture. Because as soon as they said that, I was like, what's the second thing I would ask someone? Like maybe where you're from?
Yeah, I would ask you where you're from. I would never ask you how old you are.
Would never ask you how
Literally never. No.
And so just the different way that like American culture and Western culture thinks about age, and it's this thing that like we don't want to insult someone. Like age is something so precious, and with a kind of this obsession with not aging or appearing young. And so you would never ask someone what their age is. Where in Korea, it's like, no, I'm trying to determine the status of our relationship and how I should reference you as an elder or a younger. And so I'm just going to ask you how old you are. So I loved that they weren't precious about it. And I love
Lisa is the rapper and dancer.
Okay. Yeah. Got it.
Jenny is the other rapper.
Yes.
And then Jisoo and Rose are vocals.
Got it. Love it. And the other thing I think that came across, and we've touched a little bit on this, but we spend a lot of time talking about empathy on our channel. and emotional intelligence. And these girls appeared to be some of the most emotionally intelligent young 20-year-olds, young 20s I've ever seen.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things I think I meant when I said at the start of the video that like there are intangibles that transcend this group, that elevate this group. And that's one of them. Like these humans, I firmly believe were like meant to have this time in their lives together and meant to be a part of this group. And that's very clear. It just seems so natural and organic and established for people that young. But to have them sit there and talk about how lonely they felt or how they're very aware of their emotions and the position that they're in, and the extreme pressure that they're under to perform to the expectations of their fans and their culture. And that's a hell of a lot of weight to put on someone in their early 20s. And I appreciated how honest they were about how hard it was. But yeah, like the level of their emotional intelligence EQ is like off the charts. I was just like blown away at the things they were saying, because 21-year-old Erin would not have said that stuff.
They touched a little bit on stuff with their bodies and like how, like, you know, they all have to be interchangeable in a way, but bodies aren't. And that I wish they would have gone a little bit more into that, but I think they couldn't have, for any number of reasons. That wouldn't surprise me if that was one of the boundaries that the record label set. Like, that's not the conversation we're going to have. I wish we would have talked a little bit more about how a lot of those like tours, a 9-month tour, your body is not meant to travel that much, and your body is not meant to dance that much, and all those kind of things. So I wish they would have talked about that a little bit more. I wish they would have gotten into some of the restrictions of K-pop life and what the contract means. Very famously, K-pop stars are not allowed to date while they're under contract. And right now Jennie is breaking that, but like not officially, officially, unofficially. Almost every single YA K-pop romance novel I have read centers around a secret relationship. So if you are into secret relationship trope, let me tell you, the K-pop oeuvre.
K-pop YA.
K-pop novels. My favorite is K-pop Confessional, I think it's called. I'll link it in the show notes. I have read.
Yes, I did not even know that was a genre.
Amazing. There's not many, but like it's growing, I believe.
If that's your book nip.
I mean, I've got a list for you. And this, I wish we could have unpacked that a little bit more. But what I really appreciate is that this, ratings wise, was really good for Netflix. This came in, of course, in the middle of the pandemic and was right around the time that they were launching kind of like a huge studio album. I think even their first studio album. And where Blackpink goes from here is unlimited in some ways. They had a really hit single this summer with Selena Gomez called Ice Cream. That is a way that some people can't kind of get to know them. But what I'm hoping this means is that there will be more K-pop content that's accessible to all of us. YouTube is the place for that now, because K-pop groups all have their own fan clubs that have their own names. Like BTS's is ARMY, and I cannot remember what Blackpink's is right now. I heard them use it once. But the fan curation of the fandom is another piece of BTS that we didn't get into not BTS, in K-pop, that we did not get into as much in the documentary. But I'm hopeful that because this appears to be Netflix successful, there will be more documentary content about this world, because I am fascinated by it. And the tunes are a jam.
Yeah, same. I would love a similar treatment for BTS. I would love, like, was it Netflix that did like the history of rap or the history of hip hop?
Yes, the history of hip hop. I'm working my way through that slowly. Yeah.
Yeah, I would love the history of hip hop.
Yeah, I'm on the Atlanta episode right now. Yeah.
I would love the history of K-pop and other like music genres, but like K-pop is having its moment right now. It's hard. I can't think of another like.
I'd love to know like why Europeans were more into electronic dance music than Americans were. Like, what was that marketing thing? Like, why was David Hasselhoff big in Germany and not with us? Like, this music is universal but specific in a way that fascinates me.
I would love an exploration of German pop music in the 20th century, please and thank you.
That'll do.
There's a difference between like West German and East German, and I have lots of questions.
So many.
That I would like a documentary to answer for me. But yeah, as all good documentaries do, it gave you a lot of information with also wanting you to find out more. So,
exactly.
It left us, I think, one of my favorite things was that it ended with that conversation of the four of them having dinner, lunch at this Korean joint, like joking and talking about their future lives and where they wanted to live and whether they would get married.
Would they travel with kids? Would they still tour with kids? And
and like, what about our comeback? Oh, we can't be dancing when we're 40. Like, it was just, if you gave me one clip to show me what Blackpink was, you could have shown me that clip and I would have gotten everything from that documentary out of that one clip. Their relationship, how they feel about each other, like all of
their commitment to their profession,
all of it. And it was such a positive way to end that was like not focused on the music and not focused on the production, but focused on the humans, which was cool because they could have just ended with like a big blowout from Coachella and that would have been fine too. But it says something about the documentarians that they ended with that clip, I think. Or maybe it says something about the way YG wanted the thing to go. Who knows?
Who knows? The documentary, the director of this documentary, excuse me, I'm referring to my notes once more, is Caroline Suh or Sue. It's S-U-H. I'm not sure how to pronounce that. But the other work that she has done for Netflix is Salt, Fat, Acid, Heat, which is also very intimate series and kind of documentary. So that's a lot of her stamp is on this. So obviously we recommend this. We had a great 2 hours spending with these girls, and then find yourself some Blackpink music on Spotify and enjoy. Dance around
your kitchen. It makes doing the dishes so much more fun. But I'm excited to see where they go. I genuinely like them as humans and I want them to succeed, and that's a fun thing in entertainment whenever we can cheer for good humans. So go on, Blackpink. You don't need my support, but you have it anyway.
Next up on this channel, we're going to be moving on to our next country, but playlist. But if you switch to our other playlist, which is called Welcome to My World, tomorrow, as you watch this live, there's that conversation about BTS fandom, being an American BTS fan. That'll be up on that channel. In the meantime, we'll see you next week for where are we going? Japan. We're going to head to Japan next week. And so we'll see you on Tuesday for our Japan 101.
Take care, everybody.
Bye.